G'day YouTube, my name's Lance. Welcome to Bundy Bear's Shed. Well, the weather report, 9 to 23 and sunny at the moment. Last week we had a bit of rain and the 30 to 60 millimetres that were coming through, we got 22, and look, will have helped the orchard and things like that. So, but yeah, I was finding in cloudy, shitty weather. I don't know, I don't seem to have a lot of energy in that sort of weather. I don't know how you get on in England, Ireland and some of the places down south where it's like that often. But yeah, look, I'm solar powered. I need the sun out to have energy and get going. So yeah, I far prefer the sunny days. So, but this weekend's been good. Saturday in the shed here, you might, oh, you can't really see it. The lift cover on the 65 here, I spent quite a bit of time on the lift cover, and on Saturday I had 3 goes at assembling it for different reasons, and yeah, just look, I learned a lot, and the reason, you know, I don't know how many of them I've had apart over the years, and normally you just knock the donkey dick out, pull the piston out, have a look, a quick check of the adjustments, and away you go again. You know, you're paid to come and get someone's tractor going, so you didn't muck ass around, and you didn't pull all the quadrant apart, and you didn't have all the, you know, the pivot pin for the rollers. If they were good, you didn't bother with them. Pardon me. And you very rarely ever pulled the quadrant right out of the way, like you just didn't. Yeah, you might lift the lift cylinder off and replace that, put a new O-ring under the lift cylinder, put new piston rings on, or a bush or something on the back. But not often did you start with a absolutely bare housing. And I put the draft spring in, and then the adjustment, there's a bit of conjecture about on the draft spring where one manual I read says, oh, just have it so you can turn it lightly with your fingers, and then the other one says do it up so you know you can still turn it but it's reasonably firm. Pardon me. Oh, asthma kicking in. But I found on this lift cover, when I did that, I couldn't get the adjusting nut where the rubber is. When I did that, I couldn't get it in far enough for the little screw that holds it in place to engage properly. It was sitting out further. So I found on mine, I actually had to tighten the spring up a little bit further and put a bit more tension on. And then I got a, oh, where did I put that? Here it is. So I went to Trade Tools and I bought a little high-speed wire buff for the die grinder. Now, I think the die grinder does probably 20,000 RPM, but this little wire wheel is good for 15,000 RPM. So I got that into the female thread and cleaned it all around. Then I also bought, actually they have imperial thread files at Trade Tools. So yeah, I got in and I cleaned the female thread around. The male thread was fine. So, but I found I had to adjust mine up a bit further than what the book said. And the 65 workshop manual for the 65 lift cover goes right into how it works, and you know, this happens here and that goes there and all that. But when it comes to actually popping it apart and putting it back together, it says do this and this and this and that and that and that, and it doesn't explain things very well. And so I got the 135, 148 book out and read that, and there is some differences in it, so I sort of worked with that as well, and I come to my own adjustments, yeah, roughly, because yeah, that that nut at the back there, it should have went in further. So I adjusted it up a bit further, cleaned the thread and had it so I could actually bring it in further and have the screw on the side that holds the nut in position, so it would actually engage. I do have to get a little bit of a lead ball or something and put down, because where on the side of the rock shaft, where that back draft control nut is, they have a little bit of lead there, a little lead pellet, and I might just cut a bit off a stick of solder and just, you know, screw it down in there, and just you just need it firm. You don't need it tight. And the other thing was with the wear in the housing and the lift arms, and the Sparex lift shaft, the rock shaft, I reckon it's about 4 mil longer than probably 3 mil longer than the original. And with the wear in the housing and the wear on the lift arms, I had to go and machine up a washer to take the side movement out, so I could actually get some adjustment on the side there. But that's fine, that's just worn out tractors. We used to do that with John Deere's, and, you know, space them up to bring it one way or the other how we needed it. And the other thing was where the pin is, where you got your little eccentrics inside that are pinned to the housing. When you put that on, I put that in and put the pin in and, you know, brought it across, but then it come across too far, and I thought, geez, that's no good. What's going on there? I've never noticed that before. But there's a little tab on it, and with the quadrant in, you can't bring it across too far. Yeah, with the quadrant not in, which I had the quadrant not in, I thought it was easier to set it up there. With the quadrant not in, you could bring it in too far, and then I went to put the quadrant in, and the quadrant wouldn't go in. And I thought, what the bloody hell's going on there? And so you got to loosen it up and put it back, and it's fine. I actually went up and made a little spacing washer. There we go. So I made a little spacing washer because I thought, I was looking at it and thinking, well, yeah, when the tractor's working, that can move across and rub on the housing. That's not right. You know, why is it doing that? So I made a little spacer in the lathe just to bring it across, but then later on I pulled it out because I realised that when you bring the quadrant in, the quadrant pushes that whole thing across. So if you've got that pin set and nipped up like I had, well, you can't get your quadrant quite lined up. It's close, but you just can't quite do it. So so yeah, I learned a few things, that's for sure. Yeah, just little knickknacks, and like I say, often you know, if the pin was in there and those rollers are all right, well, you wouldn't take it out. You didn't adjust it. You just, yeah, and you unless there was something particularly wrong with the quadrant, normally you wouldn't bother pulling it apart or pulling it off. But on this, because it's a bare housing resto, well, everything come apart, and I found out a few tricks that I never knew, that's for sure. So so that's okay, that's good. I made a couple of these captive nuts. Now there's one, I've fitted one to the radiator shroud. I'm still yet to pull the radiator shroud off and cut that bit of rust out, and I've got to weld the nut in, but I just made a spare one. That'll just go in my drawers with the cooling system stuff, just in case, in case I need one for another panel or something. It was just the piece of material I had just lent itself to making a couple out of it, and I thought, while I run the thread up, I may as well do the whole lot and get that done. There was talk through the week on, just hang on a second. There was talk through the week on this fuel reservoir. Now, mine is a steel one, and you know, you can see where it's been soldered, and you have your injector return comes in one, the other one goes out, or the injector return comes in here, I think. Then this one goes to your cold start in your manifold, your thermal start, and then the other one goes back into your tank. So the fuel comes back, fills this up, this stays full for your cold start if it's needed, and away you go. And with this one here, I had a viewer mention that on the Sparex parts catalogue they all have the same one. It's all a cast one now. It's die cast looking, that shitty metal. It looks like that, not like this one. And this one here, you can see it's a fabricated one. And so I thought, oh well, there's something. And the viewer was asking, how come Sparex has that one of these that does all of the jobs, and it's the later type one. And so I thought, well, I don't know that. So we jumped into the parts books and had a look, and Massey Ferguson, even though they brought this out early, it was still the same part number, and they must have changed suppliers, or they must have found it cheaper to cast them or something. But there's no mention of 2 in the parts book. So in the parts book for AGCO, the modern parts book, they went to the cast one, but it doesn't give you a serial number break, it doesn't give you anything like that. It just says that's the part number, and then if you had an early tractor you had this on it, and if you had the later tractor like Mark 1 you probably had this, and the later one had a cast one. Mine's a Mark 2, but the cast one that's on the 100 series all the way through, they all just have the one now. And we didn't know if it was something that Sparex and the aftermarket people were doing. One part does a few jobs, which they do from time to time, and sometimes it works and sometimes it's a pain in the arse. But yeah, so Sparex is correct with what they're doing. Massey Ferguson has changed it to the cast one, and that's just how it is. Yeah, so this one needs a good clean up, and I can't buy these pipes that are broken off and all that. I can't buy them, so later on I'll get the bit of 3/16 Bundy tube brake line, and I use 3/16 carb brake line for all this stuff. The Bundy tube, it has like a copper outer on it, and it stops rusting, and you can put a little flare on the end. I'm not sure what I need in here, whether it's an olive, and if it's just the case of an olive, well, you just put an olive on the pipe and do the nut up, and that crimps it in, and that's good enough. If there's a flare inside, you can buy a little flaring tool, and away you go there. So it's something we learnt through the week that I never knew. The cast one that Sparex and look, all the other aftermarket manufacturers use is correct. Like mine, the originals would have had this, so if you're sticking to original, well, you could probably find one of those at the wreckers or something. If not, the later one does the job, and it is correct because Massey Ferguson swung everything across to that. So if the tractor had that replaced sometime in its working life, it's probably got the later one on it. So that's something else we learnt. While I was at the trade tools, I bought the 3-inch row lock fitting. So see, my normal one is just a little 2-inch one I use, and I was buying a couple of these 3-inch. That doesn't want to screw on just yet. I need to push him on. But when you use these heavy flapper discs, which was something I was using, to clean the housings and that, I'd use the 2-inch one and get round, and if I wanted to speed it up, I'd put a 3-inch flapper disc on. But on the die grinder, when you stop the die grinder, because you didn't have the surface area here to hold this in place, it'd go zing across the bloody floor. And I'd think, you bastard. So off I'd be going, picking it all up again. And yeah, that's locking in nicely. And and I thought, you bloody thing. So I bought the 3-inch one. I reckon I had one here somewhere, but you know how it is sometimes. Couldn't find it. And also my while I was in there spending up, all this stuff's cheap, you know. Like, they have a really good O-ring pick kit. Now, this is a second one. I have one of these up at the machine shop for the bench, you know, where I do more intricate sort of stuff, but they've got like hook rings and there's a scraper. I never seem to use that scraper, but these little O-ring picks and things like that, they're very handy. They're pretty hard too, and I find with my old ones, well that just come with a little circlip kit, but some of my old ones, once they get the straight ones are okay, you can resharpen, but you know, on the right angle ones, trying to get a little pointy tip on there, it's just a bloody fiddle. And I have a good set like this up at the shipping container, up the machine shop, and mine down here are just getting past it. So it even comes in that thing to sit in the drawer, you know, so we'll find a drawer for that and sit that there. Yeah, just to get it all, I don't know, just to upgrade a bit of stuff, you know, your stuff wears out. Now also, oh no, it's still in the car. I bought up the back, you know, the proper cock's head riveting tool for doing the brakes. We'll probably show that a bit later on. I've been marking the drawers on, I've got one of those dyno tape machines. I've been marking the drawers. I've been spending a lot of time, like I get parts tucked away, and like say the PDO shaft and the PDO seal. I've got a drawer there with PDO on it now. And doesn't matter whether it's a T20, 65, 135, I'll have a seal, I'll have everything to do with PDO in that drawer. So when I go to look for parts, I don't have to have a full-blown parts system. I can just pull that drawer out and have a look. So I've got some of them marked. I've got one spare drawer over there. On the big Renegade box where the drawer runners come, they're held on by like a rivet, and one of the rivets had sheared and the drawer had dropped down. So I've had all the drawer out and I've sat it back in and I've re-riveted it and got all that done. So that's good. But I have one spare drawer over there, and I think I've got two over here. So like, you know, the top one is like 6-speed gearbox parts, all the bearings and seals and that I have is in the drawer. The next one down's brakes. The bottom one, geez, that's dusty over there. I shouldn't look. The bottom one's got, you know, half shaft kits for axles and things like that. And then the one on the bottom on the other side, it's got all the 65 stuff. So once I've done the 65, got all the bearings out for the final drives and the diff and all that sort of thing, that drawer will become spare until the next Renault. Yeah, so see how we go. Finger's doing good. I just took the pad off. I can't believe how quickly it's repairing. Like it was not this Sunday gone, the one before I think it was, and by Tuesday there was a little film of skin come across the whole lot, just a really thin film of white skin sort of coming across. But it started off just the whole pad sort of thing, but now look, it's probably only half the size. Still red, and I had my Band-Aid off up the house the other day, and I give it a bit of a bump and made it a bit of red come out. But yeah, so I'm using the glove when I'm working because just to try and look after it. But I do try over night time, have the Band-Aids off and give it let it air sort of thing. But look, it's going really well. Jeff was asking me this morning if I got the guard off the wire wheel yet. I haven't yet, but I haven't been using it either. Trying to have a bit of a dicky finger with gloves on and have a bolt round there, but it's just not happening. So I've been using the bead blaster. This goes in another glove and then I'm okay. But so yeah, look, that's coming along pretty good. Not doing too bad. Yeah, see how it goes. Shouldn't kill me. Today I've got a bit of work to do on the ute. Yesterday we cooked up a nice big roast. Oh, it was about 4 kilo roast, and In town here, we have this butcher, Zach's Meats, and at the moment they have whole rumps for $9.95, $9.99 a kilo, something like that. And yeah, we've been buying them, chop them in half, like they're $80, $90 worth, but you chop them in half and we roast them, freeze one half and roast the other, and that lasts us most of the week for meat. We just heat it up of an evening, and yeah, it's bloody good stuff. So yesterday Mum was coming out for a yarn in the afternoon, so we put a roast on for lunch. Put it on, we didn't have it until the evening, and yeah, so I went through all the ute, I pulled everything out of the canopy and my toolbox drawers, and I went through all that for our trip away. In a fortnight we're going for a practice camp just to see what we've forgotten, and then a fortnight after that we're off. We're out of here for 5 weeks. So the fridge doors where that plastic hinge buggered up, I've never finished fixing that, so I've got to do that today. I've got it all organised. And the door rubbers over the years, like that canopy, even though the ute's only 2.5 years old, the canopy's over 7 years old, and the rubbers are getting dicky and cracks in them, and because it's very dusty up there where we're going, last night I jumped on the internet and I've ordered a heap of new rubber for around the doors just to try and keep it all tidy if we can, as tidy as we can at least. One of the ARB air fittings, like I've got air, I just got to flick a switch and the compressor fires up, and I've got quick release couplings on the side for pumping my tyres up and blowing my air cleaner out, things like that. One of them was playing up, but yeah, one of them you just jam it in, and the other one I've worked out you can put it in, but then you got to click it back a little bit and it stays. So that's good. So yeah, the front half's packed. We've got the toilet, the hot water system, and the little cooking stoves and all that in there. I'm yet to put up a camera. I'm going to have a camera inside the cabin. So if we're driving along and I want to have a chat or have a brainwave, I can get Jude to flick it on and have a bit of a chat to the camera. See how we go with that. I've got to get in and get a bloody haircut. Gah, bloody scruffy looking prick. Starting to look like Grizzly Adams. Bloody might be Grizzly Bear. Hey, but anyway, I've needed a bloody good shear in there for weeks now, and I keep thinking, yeah, through the week on my way home from work I'll whiz home and whiz in and get a haircut, and when it comes time to go and do that I think, bugger that, I'll want to get home and do this in the shed or that in the shed. So see how we go. I got the gearbox housing, like the diff housing, all the inside painted on Saturday. I had it out in the sun and I let the heat get into the housing and then painted that. So I don't know, today I may get that on, I'm not sure. I've got to work on the ute, so we'll just see. The hydraulic pump for the 65, I put an order in, and there was an order for that and a couple of Sparex work lights and things like that, but they must have missed it, because I was talking to Caleb the other day and I said, where's that hydraulic pump going? I haven't seen that. And he said, oh, hang on. So so I think they've missed that whole email about that bit. So once the hydraulic pump comes, I'll be able to pop the top cover on here. We've done the lever adjustments and they're the easiest. Like I've never fully understood the lift cover. I've known how to fix them and get people going, but I've never sort of understood why they're doing stuff, but I do now. And when I get the pump in and I can bring the top down, you can actually adjust the lever so it just touches these levers. And like there's 2 or 3 adjustments on the whole tractor, and simple as shit. And hopefully I'm trying to get it in just simple layman's terms that I can just discuss it with you and say, we do this and do that because of that, and not make it a long drawn out half a day thing, which is where you have trouble sometimes. Just have it as simple, do this, do that, and monkey see, monkey do. That's what I reckon anyway. See how we go. But yeah, so I haven't done a lot on the tractor. I did a bit of woodworking up the other end. I had a little project I had to sort out. I did some of that through the week as well, and I was trying to keep this bloody pinky out of the shit, nice and clean. So anyway, we'll see. we'll go handheld at the end of the stew here. I haven't got a lot to show you. I've still got the mess on the floor. I don't know, I've been walking around that bloody mess for a week, probably a fortnight now. I'm going to have to deal with it. I've got to get the crown wheel up onto the bench. I've got to clean the bench now. I've got the hydraulics together. I can get rid of all my mess and get the crown wheel up here. And the crown wheel and pinion look pretty good. I've still got the pinion in the housing. I need to pop that out, and we're going to put new bearings on there. And then I wanted to get the hydraulics and all that finished before I started on the final drives, just so if someone just wants to watch that bit, they can. I'm also coming to the stage where if I can get that radiator done today, maybe, and get it masked up a little bit, to where I can, before I go away on holidays, I don't really want to leave it with this rust converter on it for the 5 weeks we're away. I would like to probably put a bit of undercoat on top of that. I think they sort of say you can do it, but I don't know. I'd be happier if I get a nice coat of undercoat on everything that needs a coat of undercoat. And when I go away, I'm not coming back to, oh shit, I've got to resand this or resand that. So we'll see how we go. Well, look, that's about it. Not a lot exciting going on in Bundy Bear's shed this week. Thanks for dropping by. We'll go handheld and just a quick walk around on what happened, and yeah, there hasn't been much. And we'll catch you all next week, eh? See yous. Okay, we're over at the bench here, and yeah, I just thought I'd show you, like say the injection pump one. That's injection pump kits, injection pump parts. You know, the plate for working on the injection pump. So, bits and pieces. That's the steering one. You know, tie rod end rubbers. You know, steering shrouds. Little TE20 ones. I've kept a couple of old ones in case I get round to chroming it. I've also kept a couple of the big nuts with the 1/16 on them, because some aftermarket nuts aren't the right size really. A couple of seat bolts that are really good ones. But yeah, just, you know, bushes for 35. Some of these have been around a while, but bushes for 35, 65, 35. Steering boxes, they're just spare old linkage pins. One of my mates had Fergie's. I used to go and work on his farm. He's all retired now, so he dropped a heap of these old original pins and all that into the shop the other day for me to use on my projects, so that was nice of him. Just wheel nuts, linch pins, you know, the proper pear-shaped linch pins. S6 is the part number for them. In the hydraulics drawer, well, look at that. A lot of this is O-rings and that you know, and you know, pressure control pots and things like that. When I've bought stuff off people, you know, they've had these there. So, and that's what they used to cart around the farms as a spare thing. And yeah, like fuel caps, Fergie fuel caps and old glass bowls. A lot of this stuff, when I'm looking for something to do, they get sandblasted. I've got a couple already done, tucked away, but I've got to go up the other place and get them. Yeah, just fuel taps that you can, you know, bits of O-rings and things like that could fix it. And this is some of the Massey Ferguson tools. All the tools I make, whether I make them or they're genuine, they go in here. So yeah, you know, the liner puller, there's quite a bit more to go in there yet. PDO, yeah, I found a proper PDO cover for the 65, so that'll be okay. A spare TE20 housing, yeah, that's a 35 one. That's the bearings and all for the PDO on the 65 here. Just exhaust clamps and radiator caps and junk. Look at that, spare one, woohoo! And this is just mainly die nuts and that for cleaning threads, and the common the common tap sizes. So, and this is just books and camera stuff and pads and spare pins and bloody cables and a bit of a mess in there, but that's all right. But yeah, that's the main charging station. These gaskets for these pins, I did the program and cut out a heap of those the other day with the laser. And yeah, some of the hydraulic standpipe O-rings, and these from Agriline, they're the rubber boot. We sell them at work. They're quite popular. The rubber boot that goes over the safety start switch, and the Lucas horn button, a proper horn button. I think there's some dash grommets here somewhere. Yeah, proper dash grommets. So, brake return springs for, oh no, it's a diff lock. That's something at the moment. There's these, where are we? Yes, 43478. They're actually a diff lock return spring, but every company has them listed as a brake return spring. Doesn't matter where you buy them, everyone just calls it a brake return spring. And it's actually, when you cross the numbers back, it's the diff lock return spring. So, not for the 65, for the 135, that sort of thing. Right, so the bench is there, then the tractor's here, so that's very handy, isn't it? So, yeah, so I've got all this panel beaded now, so this is actually nice and straight. That's got to come off and be bead blasted, and I've got the captive nut there held in by a big flat washer and a screw. So when the shroud comes off, that gets welded. The breather problem, where they don't make this hose anymore, I've got a couple of bypass hoses. They're bypass hoses for the off a John Deere 1640, where the oil pipes come round to the oil cooler under the engine oil filter. So by using two of them, I can probably bring this fella up and cut this bloke and put it down and put a bit of hydraulic tube in the middle, and that'll get the breather done and looking tidy. So I think we're on to that. I've got the safety start switch ordered. We're actually waiting on that to come. Now the brakes are still there waiting to go, and I got the main back end housing here, still with the pinion in, but I've got all the Gliptol all through there now, so that's looking good. That'll seal that up nicely. I've got the PDO bush in there to put in. So yeah, that housing's pretty well ready to go on now. So yeah, and look, I may do that, then as soon as the hydraulic pump comes I can just slide the pump down the top and away we go. So yeah, look, that's not going too bad. Now out here for the ute, we've put new snake bite kits and new first aid kits in the ute, and we've put the sticker on the side, so if we're in an accident or anyone needs one, they know just to come to this side that's off the main traffic side, and it's just behind Judy's seat there, so that's okay. The rubber here, that's getting quite perished, and all the junk I got at the back here, see the rubber's coming away from there, and yeah, it's just not the best. So we've got new rubbers coming. These new hinges are going in today. I've got the junk in the back that I've got to put in the shed because we're not taking it with us. And then we come into here, up the top here, we've got the new fire extinguisher, and it'll go up the top there, out of the way, so it's not in the way where we would normally pack stuff, and it can't get bumped and things like that. I probably should put the gauge end around there. So the door's up there today, that's ready, but that's all packed, that's going good. We've got everything else done. All these toolboxes have been sorted, all Like that's just tent pegs, and that's been all sorted neatly, and got a little brush so I can brush, and a little tomahawk, and bits and pieces. So yeah, we're pretty well ready. We bought, when we come back in the shop here, we bought a couple of bin bags to go on the back, so we can they go on the spare wheels, and yeah, that'll keep the garbage out of the canopy. So we've got one for each wheel, one we can put a bit of wood and that in. So I've got to fit them properly yet, and yeah, apart from that, we're pretty well ready, I think. Oh, down here, this little mess here. Yeah, the other day I was putting a bit of braid line on an old fishing rod. I'm taking a couple of fishing rods with us, and yeah, I just sort of put a bit of braid on, and put a bit of new line, and it's an older fishing rod because it's going to bash around a bit. So yeah, so all these little jobs in the background, never nothing to do.